The situation in the Kursk region is rather ambiguous, as Ukrainian troops are now on the verge of a new stage of one of the most significant military operations in this war. This time, the battle is taking place on Russian soil, in the Kursk region, where Ukrainian troops are surrounding a large group of Russian troops. If successful, this will be the largest encirclement of Russian troops since the beginning of the war, which will be a historic moment in the conflict. The commander of the Ukrainian armed forces, Denis Yaroslavsky, said on Facebook that about 6,000 Russian soldiers are now trapped near Glushkovo. Ukrainian troops have managed to push the Russian troops back to a natural barrier, the Saym River, through strategic maneuvers. Yaroslavsky stated, "We are in the final stages of cutting off bridges and preparing to close the largest Russian encirclement since the beginning of the war." His words underscore the tactical prowess and strategic depth of the Ukrainian military in its ongoing efforts to weaken Russian influence in the region. This entire operation by the Ukrainian military proves that Ukrainian commanders-in-chief and the military are able to assess the situation well, find the enemy's vulnerabilities, and deliver a surprise strike. After all this, we can frankly say that the enemy is really scared. Well, we are waiting for further developments. I will keep you informed, and we are moving on to the next news. Secret documents found by the Ukrainian military after they took control of a part of the Kursk region of the Russian Federation and partially published in the Western media show that the Russian military was aware of the danger of a possible Ukrainian offensive in the Kursk region. Moreover, they could have foreseen a breakthrough in the area of Sudzha, which is currently under the operational control of the Ukrainian military command. The question may arise, why didn't this understanding of the situation lead to the Russians fortifying themselves in the Sudzha area, increasing the number of their troops in the Kursk region, and thus creating a situation that would have made a Ukrainian raid on the sovereign territory of the Russian Federation impossible? There are several obvious answers to this question. The first is that in an authoritarian state with no parliamentary or public control over the actions of the authorities, there is an inertia of good news. The head of state lives in his own world, and no one in his inner circle dares to tell him what is really going on, for fear of losing the favorable position and control over financial flows for which he came to power. And this tendency, of course, continues from the first person to those officials who carry out the orders of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. In the post-Soviet space, this is a trend in general, especially when it comes to people who came to power by accident, as a result of an oligarchic or clan agreement. And such people, as we seem to have forgotten, include Vladimir Putin. Thus, no one wanted to disturb anyone. The chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, General Gerasimov, did not want to disturb Putin. General Gerasimov's subordinates did not want to disturb the chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation. Their subordinates also tried to conceal information about the likelihood of an offensive by Ukrainian troops in the Kursk region, and this offensive became possible despite the fact that the Russians could be aware, if not of the details of this offensive, then at least follow its preparations. The accumulation of troops, the operational situation in the Sumy region of Ukraine, neighboring Kursk. All of this could have been information, but the information came to Vladimir Putin when it was too late, and Ukrainian troops, unexpectedly for Putin, not for the officers who were in the Kursk region, launched an offensive against this Russian region. And there is one more important reason why the Russians might not have responded to the reports of the military in the Kursk region of the Russian Federation. The command of the Russian armed forces simply does not have enough additional forces. The main goal of the Russian army now is to establish control over the territory of Donetsk region. As you know, this was the task Vladimir Putin set for his troops when he decided to launch the so-called special military operation against Ukraine. We have already forgotten about it. We have forgotten that the beginning of the special operation was accompanied by Vladimir Putin's decision to recognize the so-called independence of the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics invented by the Kremlin. Subsequently, these Ukrainian regions, declared people's republics, were annexed by the Russian Federation and written into its constitution under their own names invented by President Putin's administration. But then, in February 2022, Putin actually said that he recognized these pseudo-states in their territorial integrity, that is, within the administrative borders of Donetsk and Luhansk region. And the main thing that his army has to do is not only to change the government in Kiev in order to bring puppets to the Ukrainian capital on tanks, but also to help the newly independent states restore their territorial integrity. And now Putin has been fulfilling this task for 2.5 years, and every day of delay in establishing full control over the territory of the Donetsk region of Ukraine is, of course, a shame for the Russian military command. And Vladimir Putin, in his dialogues with the chief of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces, General Valery Gerasimov, keeps reminding him of this, and the smug general is already tired of it. And in this situation, of course, when it comes to the need for forces to protect the Kursk region from a theoretical offensive by the Ukrainian armed forces, and the need for forces to drive Ukrainian troops out of Pokrovsk, to enter a new strategic direction and move to the complete capture of Donetsk region, at least by the end of 2024. Of course, the leadership of the Russian troops chooses the Donetsk direction, not the Kursk direction. This explains the fact that even after Ukrainian troops appeared on the territory of Kursk, the Russian military command delayed for a long time the creation of a group that would try to drive Ukrainian forces beyond Russia's sovereign borders. In this way, they were creating opportunities for the Ukrainian army to gain a foothold in the region, so that the very possibility of fighting the Ukrainian army in the Kursk region of the Russian Federation would prove to be a difficult task for the Russian army. But again, the question is about priorities. And when, on the one hand, you don't want to give the command bad news that could create an unpleasant atmosphere in communication between Putin and Gerasimov, and on the other hand, you don't have additional soldiers and additional equipment, because all your efforts are focused on the offensive in the Donetsk region and on defending your positions in the Kharkiv and Kherson regions of Ukraine, then in such a situation, of course, it is better to ignore the fact that your officers who are in the Kursk region tell you that Ukrainian troops could be here in a few weeks. Because you don't think about where Ukrainian troops should be, you think about where Russian troops should be. And this is what determines your promotion, your new position, and control over financial flows, which remains the main goal of everyone in the current Russian government. Everyone who is trying to build friendly relations with Russian President Vladimir Putin and his inner circle. And with this approach to things, it is possible to lose not only Kursk region. Thank you, friends. Stay tuned to this channel and subscribe to it so you don't miss the latest news. This video was prepared by Hustler. See you soon.